Hi, this is Gary Arnold. I am the Public Affairs Manager at Access Living, and you are joining us with Adapt of Chicago Productions. We're taping an interview today at Access Living, and we're going to talk in this interview about the Department of Labor overtime issue. A few years ago, the Department of Labor passed new rules regarding overtime, and according to those rules, personal assistants within the home care program are eligible for time and a half for any time worked more than 40 hours a week, and are also eligible for pay for travel time. As a group that works with a lot of personal assistants and that works with consumers who are in the home care program, Access Living is all in support of overtime. It's important to grow the pool of qualified people in the personal assistant pool, and the more incentives you have, the more chances you have, the more likely you are to build that pool. And good pay and overtime is a great incentive in order to attract people and to keep qualified people. The problem is that each state can attach implementation rules to the overtime guidelines that were passed by the Department of Labor. Some states have done it and have done it well. Massachusetts, for example, has implemented the rule and is doing it in a way that really supports personal assistants and people with disabilities in the program. Illinois, unfortunately, is not doing it well. They have introduced a number of guidelines that will really hurt the program, that will really threaten the independence of people with disabilities in the program, and will threaten to drive away personal assistance. One of those guidelines is, except for a very, very few circumstances, there will be a cap on hours worked for personal assistants. No personal assistant will be allowed to work more than 40 hours a week. So this is going to require a lot of people who have service plans of more than 40 hours a week to hire additional PAs, personal assistants. And that's much easier said than done, especially if you're in areas that are outside big urban centers, where it might be hard to track down a new personal assistant, let alone a personal assistant that you trust and that is qualified to do the job. Personal assistants, provide very intimate services for people and oftentimes require a long time to develop a relationship. And one of the things that these guidelines are doing is threatening to break up that relationship between a personal assistant and a person with disability in the program. So there have been all kinds of efforts since the beginning of 2016 to get Illinois to back off on these implementation guidelines. But as it stands now, the implementation guidelines are set to go into effect on May 1st. And as we're taping this, we're in the last week of April, so we're just a few days away. But all kinds of stuff, as I said, has been happening in order to stop this implementation deadline and bring Illinois back to the bargaining table. Yesterday, in late April, there was a series of news conferences across the state. SEIU, the union, is in negotiations with the state. Those are two examples of things that have been happening. Thousands of people across the state have been calling in, have been emailing in. Another things that have been happening, another advocacy item that's happened, though, is a series of rallies. One of those rallies happened last week, later in April, in Chicago at the Department of Human Services office.
The overtime policy that the state has adopted is extremely restricted and naive. It seems to assume that everybody who has a PA can just pull another PA out of a hat whenever they have a problem with overtime. It could put people, even under the best circumstances, in very tenuous positions where they might have to no longer employ people that have been with them for many years. It's punitive, it's ridiculous, and it has to stop. The federal government will pay half of what it would cost to do this, and that leaves the state with half. It's a few $1 million. It's not a lot. It can be come up with in any number of ways. We're willing to talk about how to pay for it, but not if. It's naive and restrictive and punitive, and it's pretty typical around here.
No caps, no cuts, no caps, no cuts, no caps, no cuts, No caps, no cuts. What are you afraid of? Let us in. What are you afraid of? Let us in. What are you afraid of? Let us in.
We are here because of the unfair, unjust, and inhumane new overtime policy. That is an assault on the rights of people with disabilities and home care attendants.
Because as long as the consumer needs the overtime, then they should be able to get it. Because some of the tasks that the home care workers provide is very intimate, and they don't want anybody doing that. There have to be someone that they trust and that they're comfortable with. And we're just asking them, no cuts, no caps.
The purpose of state government is to serve and protect its citizens.
Yeah, that's right.
The state of Illinois has failed its citizens and people with disabilities.
That's right.
Last year, our newly elected billionaire governor proposed a budget that would have 10,000 people with disabilities off of home care services
That's not right.
and 36,000 seniors off of the community care program.
That's not right.
This was an extreme attempt to save money on the backs of people who need their assistance.
And there are situations where tomorrow I could be threatened by the overtime policy even though I have 7 workers. I had a personal assistant who was out riding his bike one night. And that night he got run over by a drunk driver and killed. At any point in time, you could find yourself without a worker for a week, a month. And what are you supposed to do? You have to have your other workers step in and go over 40 hours a month. And nobody has people that are just sitting around saying, well, you know what, you just call me whenever you need me. The state seems to think that all we have to do is hire enough workers and we can survive.
Runner, runner, you can't hide. We can see your dirty side. Runner, runner, you can't hide. We can see your dirty side. Runner, runner, you can't hide. We can see your dirty side.
This is the law office of Minority Leader in the Illinois House of Representative Jim Durkin. We're here because he's is against our services getting passed, and so what do we say? No cap, no cuts.
So I'm at risk of going into a nursing home if this keeps happening. Governor Arnold does not understand that our home services is our lifeline for many, many people. And it's not just people who use wheelchairs.
Let's call Minority Leader Durkin and tell him to come on down. 312-876-7100.
Please be transferred to the general mailbox. Using your telephone dial pad, please enter the first 3 letters of your party's last name.
Yeah, they hung up on me. They said he's not here. I said, could we come up and deliver a message? And they hung up. I don't know.
Please wait. It's ringing.
And production. I'm joined by Tom Wilson. Tom is another colleague of mine at Access Living. Tom is a healthcare community organizer and policy analyst for Access Living and is also a member of Chicago ADAPT. And Tom, you were at that rally at the Department of Human Services office last week. Tell us a little bit about what happened, the goals of the rally, and the outcome of the rally.
Okay. Yes, Gary. I'm a member of ADAPT, as you said, and ADAPT, I think, called for this protest, and we were joined by a few people from the Alliance for Human Services, a few people from the Service Employees International Union that represents personal assistants. And we went to the main office of the Department of Human Services with the idea to deliver the message to Secretary Demas that this new policy was short-sighted and wrong-headed in so many ways. You know, the overtime that they would expect in this new program would cost the state about $7 million. And that's peanuts in the relative scheme of things. But for the people who are affected in the program, it means for a lot of consumers, I've known one consumer who already lost a live-in PA because they were working more than 40 hours and saw that they weren't going to be able to earn as much as they were earning before. So this is actually a wage cut for some people. Other cases are family members that are doing the care, and while the family member is a safe situation for the consumer, bringing in an outside person to fill in the extra hours feels a little bit threatening to some of these families. So we think that any kind of cap is ridiculous, that, you know, PAs, as you mentioned, need to be paid a decent wage and to earn overtime if they're working that many hours. At the rally itself, we were blocked from going into the building. They had a security guard or several at the door. We did some very serious chanting. I think they heard us most of the building. Yeah. And we had some really good speeches about people who were impacted by this policy. And we had a video made of the action. So hopefully maybe you can find some clips of that to show. But that was a very strong message to DHS that they're on the wrong track. You know, this isn't the only thing. Last year they tried to cut the people off the program by changing the DON score. They were going to try to cut over 10,000 people off the program. And there's also been difficulty, you know, here you are changing the policy so that people have to hire more PAs. And even the managed care organizations are telling me that it's taking 3 or 4 months to hire a new PA. Well, you know, a PA that's not getting paid for overtime isn't going to stick around for 3 or 4 months. So this is really a threat to people's care, and it's a threat that they may end up in an institution that they don't want to be in. So then we also know that there's very much a political side to this. There's some people in this administration, particularly the governor, I think, who do not support any unionized workforces. And so this is another attempt, I think, to break the union. You know, but it ends up hurting people with disabilities. And so we went over to the law office of the minority leader in the House. And again, we were kind of blocked from going up to his office. But we called his office, we sent up messages, and we made it clear that this overtime policy was wrong for Illinois, wrong for the people that they were trying to serve. And, you know, Home Services has been shown to save a lot of money. Recently, well, soon to be released will be a Colbert study comparing the cost of people in the nursing home to people in the community. And we have some, I would say, forewarning that that study is going to show enormous savings to the state for people living in the community. And Illinois still is a way too institutionalized state. We have people living in institutions that would do much better in the community, and yet we don't do the right thing. So ADAPT is maybe planning another action. We haven't given up on this issue. We're not going to go away, and we're going to keep fighting for people who need home care to get the home care that they need, and in a way that makes it high quality and makes it so that they aren't going to be losing their workers when they need them.
All right. Well, thank you for that rundown of things. And you said the House Minority Leader Jim Durkin. That's who that was.
Yeah,
right?
the Minority Leader Durkin. He has a law office here in Chicago.
Yeah.
Lives out in the suburbs somewhere.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned that I thought was interesting was one of the theories is that this is another tactic of the governor in order to dismantle the union, but then you said that it's going to end up hurting people with disabilities, but it's going to end up hurting the state of Illinois financially also. You talked about it's an investment of $7 million, and if we fail to make that investment, then what we're looking at is added costs of institutionalization. Is that a correct assumption to make?
I think that's a correct assumption to make. We need to be strengthening the infrastructure for home care. We need to be empowering consumers so that they can get the care that they need so that they can actually live independent, full lives in the community. I mean, institutional life is like being in prison without a parole date. And in the community, if you're not getting enough hours of support and services, it can really narrow your life down too. And we want people to have rich lives, with opportunities to work, to play, to do whatever they want to do. And that's why we need a really good home care service program.
Okay. So when this airs, it'll be May, and so the May 1st deadline will have passed. Let's say the state, they push back the deadline a couple of times. Let's say they don't push back the deadline this time and they start enforcing and implementing the guidelines. What do you think is next from the community and the standpoint and our allies?
Well, we certainly need to monitor this, and as we see people lose PAs, and if we see people go into nursing homes, the state needs to know this. I think what will show the state that they're wrong is when these stories start coming out. But we know of stories already where people are being forced to choose between. Well, let's say you have a PA that's working for 2 or 3 consumers and they're working more than 40 hours, they're going to have to drop one of the consumers. And we're seeing those kind of things happening already.
Right, exactly. And we mentioned that there was a series of news conferences just yesterday as of the time of this taping, and one of the speakers at the news conference at Access Living was this mother who served as a personal assistant for 2 of her daughters. And under the new rules, she's going to have to decide. She's not going to be able to continue services for both. And so
it's just
I don't
ridiculous.
think the state prepared for a situation such as that. It's, you can't just say, we'll go hire another PA.
Yeah, this policy was made without the input of people with disabilities. It came from the top down. It was really poorly conceived in so many ways. If you're going to make a program for people with disabilities, we have a saying, nothing about us without us. Right. People with disabilities needed to be in the room when that policy was worked out. That didn't happen, and it shows just how ridiculous and stupid people can be when they don't live the situation they're trying to make the rules for.
Right.
And that's not the way to do it.
Right. All right. Well, something tells me that this won't be the last time this issue is addressed on Adaptive Chicago Productions, and we'll continue to talk about this in the months to come. But Tom,
let's hope it's a victory or some good news.
Right, exactly. That'll be a nice opportunity to talk about a victory on the show. But I want to thank my guest, Tom Wilson. We've been talking about home services and the new overtime guidelines that are scheduled to be implemented and enforced starting in May on May 1st. So if you want to get involved and support the disability community, support the efforts of Access Living and allies in order to fight back against these rules and really support the right of people to get quality services in the community, contact Access Living at 312-640-2100 and ask for more information about home services advocacy, and you'll be directed to an appropriate person. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Tom, and we'll see you next time. This is Adaptive Chicago Productions.